What's really going to stop all this right now and try to at least keep things stable?
So we think you need policy, some kind of policy change in order to restore a bit more confidence. I think previously markets were concerned about the spillover from Evergrande, but I think more recently we're seeing some of the data showing, if you look at land sales, if you look at property sales, and all of those indicators are suggesting there's quite a bit of weakening from August to now. And so there's already some signs that this is broadening to not just an Evergrande issue. And so we think you need some kind of policy adjustment in order to restore a little bit more confidence.
How big of an adjustment would it have to be? Because it seems like a broad-based type of easing in the property market is almost hard to bet right now, given that a lot of these directives are coming from the top.
Yeah, so we think that they maybe need a bit more time in order to find the right balance. Because let's also not forget that they don't want to overstimulate. They also want to keep property prices stable. And so finding the right balance could require a little bit more fine-tuning. Now, we saw before Golden Week, there were some kind of signs that maybe things were easing up a little bit. So, for example, there was this high-profile meeting with the regulators in which they told banks to ensure stability in the economy and in the property sector. So we'll be looking at kind of some of those policy mixes going forward.
Now, as it pertains, I guess, to what you guys are telling your clients as it pertains to Evergrande. I mean, there's been, things were stable up until about 2 weeks ago, and then you had the Fantasia thing happen, and then now we're trading essentially, almost 20 cents on some of these dollar bonds. Do you think, markets are still, I guess, overestimating recovery rates for offshore bondholders, Kenneth?
I think the market is currently, clearly pricing in a lot of uncertainty.
Okay.
And we are expecting there could be more defaults because there is this real push for deleveraging by the policymakers. And so the market is pricing in a wider tail risk, which we don't think is unfair, because we do think that tail risk will stay elevated within the China property sector. Now, in saying that, we do think that the better quality, the stronger developers are in a position to better manage some of the regulatory tightening. And so you need to be careful, but not to be completely avoiding the sector.
Absolutely. In fact, I was going to ask you, what specific, whether that's financial health measures or even the short-term liquidity measures or ratios that you can look at on these balance sheets, are you using right now to figure out who's probably next and who's going to be okay?
I mean, we don't kind of have any calls in terms of who's going to be next and who's okay, but obviously, we will look at the leverage profile,
right,
the sales, all the regular kind of credit metrics that everyone looks into. But it's just important to be on the safer side.
Yeah, you mentioned about being on the safer side. You are seeing a bit of a divergence when it comes to China high yield versus what you're seeing in the investment grade. And it seems like there are some investors that are tilting towards the safer side of the credit markets right now. Is that the right call, do you think?
In our view, it is. In our view, it is important to stay on the lower beta side, just because the uncertainty is going to create a lot of volatility in the market. That, we think, means it is better off to be on the safer end.
Kenneth, we had really bad weather this weekend here in Hong Kong, as I'm sure you've noticed here. You look out the weekend and you go like Hong Kong Observatory. Of course, it's a T8, if not a T10. The reason I bring that up, it's a statement of fact almost. And when you look at the credit ratings agencies, for example, and what they're saying, and I mean this with all due respect, of course, to the ratings agencies, how useful are those ratings right now for Chinese credit?
Well, the rating agencies, we think, play a very important part, and they always have been. And so I think all of us are looking at the regulatory changes and trying to make sense out of it, including the rating agencies themselves.
In terms of the next signs of stress, I know you're saying it's hard to kind of fathom, but how do you even start to look at it? Because I'm taking a look at just kind of the private debt that Evergrande has. How as an analyst do you actually start to even look for something like that, the hidden debt in some of these property developers?
Well, we try to look through whatever item on the balance sheet, in the notes to the accounts, that would suggest that there are contingent liabilities or debt that are not on the balance sheet. But overall, it is an assessment that one needs to make by just whatever is available in the information.